Chapter 8. An Escape to the Stars. The next week, she asked me to get away. When I asked her why we would, she gave me this look, and I can help but smile. She has never been this cheerful for the past few days. Her eyes were livelier than they usually are. At the top of my mind, I could see the consequences. I could imagine the aftermath of her wishes, and a part of me objects. Yet, seeing her smile washed my reasons away. The answer alone is right there in her face. It's a trip I shouldn't, and a trip I wouldn't miss. She hugged me tight upon me saying yes, and I felt her fragile, warm body against me. Even when I close my eyes, even when we are where we are now, I could see many places where we could be, all with her and only her. It wasn't a choice. It was a call that saved my life. And just the ones she asked me before, this one I wouldn't neglect. We were at a few blocks away from the coffee shop when she asked me to come pick her up by dawn, exactly at 3 in the morning. She then planted a light kiss on my cheeks and teased me to go away, but she still took hold of my hand, only letting it go when I insisted that I could use some sleep before picking her up. She silently laughed at me, then finally let me go, walking. Even when I turned my back and strolled my way home, I could picture her in my head smiling, excited at the thought of us going away from here. The first thing I did when I reached home was pack a few things that would accompany me in this unplanned, sweet elopement. I waited for her at the bus stop, and it didn't take too long before she appeared among the increasing crowd. She threw herself into me, and I caught her into my arms and leads her to one of the many buses lined up now in the station ready to depart. She insisted on having the seat close to the window. Once we settled, I took her bag and placed it on the upper compartment of her seat. The bus starts filling in with the morning passengers, some young children and their parents, and some are groups of labor workers that seem are all off to their work for the day. I let Evan sleep into my shoulders for the rest of the ride, and even I despised waking her up, I did. When we passed through across certain views worth not missing. Sometimes we passed on cows minding their businesses, chowing grasses, long trails of farms and endless treks of hills, away from the city traffics. I feel her excitement within my arms, her eyes widening with pleasure, and this has been our moment in the bus, sleeping only to wake up a few moments here and then, cherishing as the morning turns to afternoon, to twilight. We woke up to the sound of the bus assistant shouting the name of the city where the mountain we're aiming to climb is located. Only then that we realized there were only a few of us left in the bus. Most of the passengers had dropped off earlier on the road. We were accompanied by a mountaineer who led us to where we needed to be, just as Evan has planned prior to departing the city. Her enthusiasm to the chore is contagious. I have my fair share of keeping up with the small talks and laughs here and then until we finally reach where we're supposed to stay. The mountain guide, who introduced himself as Gabriel, bid us a temporary farewell and told us to let him know through messages if we need anything else. He quickly strolled off to help other climbers. Evan took the lead from there on. With our hands joined together, she led me towards a high cliff where we will be going. By the time we reached the peak, twilight emerges as if meeting the afternoon sky and bidding the land goodbye, beautifully, majestically. The contrast between the orange slices being drowned over the pale blue linens of twilight make it so breathtaking, literally. Anyone who could look at it can be mesmerized, taken aback by the view. And the way Evan looks at it makes it all the more both in my eyes. She held my hand as I followed her upon the step rocks, and the air brushes our skin. It's as if we were being embraced on a softest kind, smoothing the rough remains of sunny afternoon away, softening our sun-kissed skin. The stars starts to peek through the depths of the royal blue sky, and the sunset finally drips away. Evan stops on her tracks, watching, amazed, and her whole reaction to it softened my throbbing heart. She was so close, and when she grips my shoulder, I know her heart is overflowing with happiness I never saw through her before. I steadied myself and pulled her close, while she still lost, looking as the sky bids farewell to the sun and the clouds fades into thin lines. I felt her heartbeat hum along with her warmth. I looked at her and cleared my throat, marveling, watching how beautiful she was. I knew I wouldn't forget for the rest of my life. She may have noticed the weight of my stares, and she turned around and our eyes met. She envelops her arms around my ribs, filling in the space separating our foreheads to touch. Through the gusting wind and the fading sun, she smiled and closed her eyes, and so I did too. And all I know is I'll never be the same. This may look like what happens in the movies, where two people climbs up a mountain hill beneath the setting sun, camera rolling endlessly, their eyes were the stars of the evening. But what am I feeling right now are the opposites of this. It's beautiful. She's beautiful. Everything's beautiful that I forget I was dead inside for so long to even feel like everything is alive. She's here with me. She's a reminder that I'm alive. She's beside me, warm in my arms, offering me a piece of her life, her heart, and suddenly I want to offer her all of me, even my life, to be hers, to make those eyes open and bright up a few more years. Soon we reached the peak of the mountain, and the shine of the evening stars, as well as the moon from afar, guided us to lay out our blankets. We shared a cup of mocha latte as soon as we settled. I spilled a little on my lap, and she laughed and quickly reached out to wipe the remaining drops on my chin. I told her we should be lighting up a little bonfire around since I can see other mountain hikers doing the same, glimmering the mountain slopes in beautiful flaming scenery. She insisted that the skylights alone are enough, and I didn't argue further, seeing how she got lost over looking at them. She asked me if I had listened to any song earlier this week, and asked me then if they talk about being in the dark, the romantic kind and all. She was sitting a little far from where I am, unpacking the bags, probably pulling out the blanket we brought, her usual self talking. It's funny how people always describe dancing in the stars or in the dark, she says, her head glancing up at the sky. Have you ever thought about it sometimes, how they capture such things that are so magical and that they always put them in a couple of dozens of songs? I didn't answer. I long ago stopped listening to those songs she's referring, but I know what she meant. She keeps on talking about it, unaware of how she shines in this dim darkness within the light of the fire mixed with the starry twinkle of the stars she was admiring. She went on with the thought, then she'll pause, and she'll come up with another idea related to the stars, the night skies. She even hums a tune of a certain song and wonders how people, real lucky people in the world, had actually experienced that moment. Little did she know she was the reason I'm slowly experiencing it tonight. I stood up, and extended my right hand on her, wishing she'd recognize the gesture. There was a glimpse of uncertainty in her eyes when I moved closer, and when I moved the hand in a coaxing way, she broke out in a small laugh. I thought all this time you weren't romantic. You didn't ask me if I had become one, I replied, still extending my hand. Have you? Instead of answering, I again offered my hand, gave her a look. A little sweet smile crept across her lips, and she stood face to face with me, containing the smile. I think you are. She took my hand, our bodies touched through the sweaters, her other hand enclosed to my other free hand. She leaned back a little, and our eyes met through the dark, moving in an endless motion in the farthest part of the little universe we are sharing. I clumsily step on her right foot, in which she just giggles in my arms. Should I tell you now how bad of a dancer you are? Should I tell you now that you're also kind of one? She laughs hard this time, throwing her head back to meet my full stares, her hips moving softly along with mine. Then we both are imperfect, she whispered. I fight the urge to kiss her right there, knowing it's too sudden, too impulsive, and she may not like it. But the way she looked at me tells me she felt that too. Yet, instead of being off about it, she touched her forehead with mine, like she used to, and I kissed it as she closed her eyes, as we kept moving around the little circle in the grass. The stars from above dances with us, gleaming like a million ballroom lights, and the moon watches us in silence as I twirl her teasingly in back to my arms again, and this time we were locked into the silence. Her heartbeat and mine, the only sound we could ever hear through our ears, our shirts. Later, we were on our backs, lying beside each other on the grass, feeling it, and the earth's soil embraced our bodies. She was watching the sky, looking so lost over their beauty, and it showed in her eyes. And I got lost and at the same time found just by staring at her. She edged her head to find its nest on my shoulder, and in between the grass, she sought for my hand. I can feel her breathing start to soften, and it falls to a sweet rhythm alongside mine. So this is how it feels to watch like the ones who could see the stars like we were the only ones who could. It might sound ridiculous to me at first, but her presence takes the ridiculousness away. There she was, and there was I, staring at the void of everything, the universe bursting in front of us beautifully. I look over my shoulder and watch her whisper a silent wish upon a star. Maybe it is a miracle, a life anew. But little did she know her soul shines the most than any wishing stars up there that glows. And with this, I'm sure. By morning, I felt Evan waking me and insisted I wake up just as quick so we won't miss the view. When I failed to comprehend, she planted a kiss on my nose, one that made me open my eyes in surprise, and finally took notice of the view she was talking about. The mountain looks too beautiful to behold, and the serene thin clouds started to form from the sides of it, greeting the sun that's about to rise any minute from now. The mixed hue of orange and light yellow, blended with the mountain's green bed and curves, makes it a whole vision of what Earth might have looked like in its beginning phase. Evan snuggled against me, within the blanket, and we both watched how the sun rises up on its peak, and soon we decided to go down the mountain at once. The mountaineers greeted us good morning as we climbed down, and when we reached the lower grounds, and when we were a few steps away, Evan caught sight of a church amongst the forest. It stood serene and still, and after giving me a glance, she took a light hold of my hand and guided me towards it. The church is open, but there weren't many people around. The candles hadn't been lit, but the morning sunlight is enough to see the church clearly. Evan dropped her bag on the first long chair she spotted, went straight ahead to where the cross lays, and whispered a silent prayer and touched his feet, then turned to look at me with this serene smile. Just stay where you are. Just right there, she said. I look at her in confusion, wondering where she's going with this. I look over behind me to see if there was anyone, but there was none. When I looked back, she was already standing in the aisle, smiling at me. Would you like to get married? She asked with a laugh. I inhaled in consternation, smiling, realizing now what was in her mind. What? Jamie wed Landon in that book. She added a few seconds later. I know, but would you like to get married? She asked again. I wanted to tell her we should get going, but everything about her stops my reasoning. She looks so beautiful standing there, with this hope lighting up her eyes. And even though I know she was just fooling around, I can see myself marrying her in all the churches she wanted. Only I didn't recognize we would have the first of them here. And I have no problem with that. Would you like to get married to me? She prompted again. I smiled and whispered, yes, I would like to. I would like to in any lifetime. If that is so, then walk up here. Let's get married, she said with a laugh. I gave her a long look. Come on, we're changing weddings now, she insisted. Okay. So I started walking, slowly at first, never taking my eyes off her. When I reached the midst of the aisle, I remember how Landon must have felt in that book. And seeing Evan waiting for me with this wistful look in her eyes made the moment indescribable. My heart keeps up with its rhythm as I finally stood in front of her at the altar. We said our vows soon, and we held hands in between the soft church sunlight. When it's time for the kiss, the bride part, she blushed, and my heartbeat speed up faster. Not sure if I can kiss her now or not. She steadied her eyes on mine, and I suddenly wanted to know. I took a step closer, cupped her face, moved it closer to mine, and when I thought I had already brushed my lips against her, she took one step forward, her lips touching mine softly, and both our eyes closed. I forgot the thought of her dying. I forgot the thought of her living only a few months more. I forgot who I have been in this last few months, or the last few years before that. I forgot that I am a firm believer of the worst of me. I forgot that the world doesn't work the way we want it to. I forgot the taste of the mocha latte we always share in the coffee shop. All I know is when our lips touched, I felt sure that there was tomorrow, with just me and her, in a life she still have, in a life I would be proud to have.